All right, so reviewing what we've done in the last 4 videos, we came up with an idea for a fantasy landscape based on a theme. We looked for high quality references using Pixabay, which gave us images that were super good quality, right? Now, even though they're super good quality and high resolution, it doesn't mean they're always in perfect focus. So notice how the tree is not in great focus, but the depth of field at the base of the rock is, right? And that's just the nature of photography. But they are all large enough to be print quality at least 8 by 10 inches. So then we brought our sketch into Photoshop and we cropped to our sketch so that these cropped lines inside is at least 8 by 10 by at least 300 pixels per inch. And then to give ourselves space to work, I grew the canvas size to 30 by 40 inches, which is the largest paper that a professional printing press can accommodate, like a standard professional offset lithography press. So now I've brought in my references, and you'll notice how they go from background to foreground. They're kind of stacked, and I just have them arranged around. So now is the placement and the rough cutting phase. Just like if this was collage, like you'll be writing about in question of the day 1, what's the difference between traditional and digital techniques? In collage, I would take that magazine and I would cut it where I wanted it with plenty of overlap, because I want this sky. And the way we're going to do that digitally is we're going to use the lasso as our scissors. And so I went around it. If you find that your lasso is getting hung up on your guides, that's because the default is for selections to stick to the guides. Just hit Command semicolon and hide the guides for now. So you see how it little jogged along it there? So if I wanted to be more freehand about it, it might be like that. But this is what's important about rough cutting. You want more than what you need, right? So this is like tearing instead of a really precise blade. And now to cut it out, I hit Command J. When I hit Command J, it makes a duplicate of my selection. You see the cut edge there. And it also leaves the smart object untouched. And when it makes that duplicate and pastes it onto a layer above, that's Command J duplicating all in one keystroke, it also gets rid of the smart object tag. Because remember, smart objects you can't delete from. So then I simply turn off the smart object, and now I have this. And it's rasterized. And if it's rasterized, then I can also size it. Command T. And I can just bring it in as my sky. And I don't even need to warp it or change it. This looks pretty good. Now, the problem is it covers up my sketch, right? So what have we learned? I can onion skin the sketch. I can take my sketch layer, make a duplicate of it, move it up to the very top. And so you can see what this does. I'll turn on that background. And then we're going to dim this to about 20% opacity, just for while we're placing things. Okay, then hit return. Now, do I need to use all the sky like that? No, not necessarily. It can definitely go beyond the realms. So I can go back to my smart object, and I might decide to use the sky like this, like just that portion. So I do a rough cut of it like this. And even though I know I don't want to use that bush, that gives me more space to play with outside of my bounds. So maybe that's what I'll use. Okay, what's the next layer? I can turn that one off for the time being. And I can even, sometimes I do this, I'll just mark it with a color. So I'm going to use that one. That's my background. What goes on top of my background? I have this cliff. So where should this go? I have it over here. I'm going to flip it. So even while it's still a smart object, I can do Command T and I can do flip horizontal. And then what am I going to do? I'm going to kind of figure out the size. That looks pretty good. Maybe shrink it a little. Okay, good. Now what do I actually want to cut? Well, I want overlap. So I want these mountain peaks, but I also want that cloud and that mist. But I don't want that gray sky. So I'm going to rough cut, kind of tear out that whole chunk. Command J, make a duplicate, turn off the smart object behind. And now I can see them stacked up. I got the purple sky with my cloud. I'm not going to try to blend them yet, right? Because I'm still just rough cutting and placing, informed by this sketch. So there's my mountain, there's my sky. What's next? These boulders, but I think what's even closer than that, yeah, is this mist. So I'm going to bring that mist. Use the move tool. I can stretch it, I can warp it. I've got the big mountain. I know I don't want the sky. But this might be one that I compress like this. Because I like some of those foreground rocks too. Those can help. So let's see, maybe my design will go a little bit lower. So maybe about there. Okay, now I got to cut it out. So I use my lasso, and I don't try to cut it out cleanly on those rocks. I just make sure I get a lot of overlap. And because this is spilling into the foreground, I can take all of that and then duplicate and then turn off the smart object, and I'll mark it. I'm actually liking the violet more than the green, just to indicate these layers. So that's 3 of my references now. Does it matter that my middle ground is blocking my big mountain? Not really, but if I want to be reminded of that, I can rough cut this out just to remind myself that's not going to be there. And because it's rasterized, now I can just delete it, right? And let that mountain peak poke out behind. What's next? The boulders. I'm just going to rough cut them. I've already flipped them. The sky is actually really cool. I might use that separately. How would I use it separately? I would grab it like this from the smart object, duplicate it, Command J, bring it over on its own. Transform that duplicate, because I'm growing pixels here, have it really overlap my background, and bring it back so that it does. It just gives me another element to play with. And I can just immediately play with lower opacity, because this is like glazing that purple sky with something a little bit more ominous and strange, the warm to the cool. But back to the boulders and using them. I'm just going to rough cut now the land around them and the edges around them. Like that. Remember, you can add to a selection by holding down Shift. And then duplicate. Command J, turn off the background, bring these in. They are informed by my sketch. So they can be a little bit smaller. I should lock that onion skin layer so I don't accidentally move it. And let's see. Make them about that size. Okay. Now I need some foreground. So I've got the shark's teeth, and I've got the skull, and I've got these teeth. So I'm going to use the skull. I'm going to rough cut around it. and keep everything below it, especially that shadow in case that's helpful. Command J, turn off the smart object. Take that duplicate layer, move it into the foreground where I want it, transform it if I want. Tilt it, and this is what you don't want to have to do, but I'm just going to grow it a little bit. And because it's in the foreground, that's okay. It's going to take a little bit of its sharpness off, but the foreground is what we can kind of look past. I'm going to place it there. Next, the shark teeth. Going to grab those like so. And how many do I actually want to use? Not too many. Duplicate. Turn off the smart object. It already rasterized it for me, which means I can Command T it. I can transform it. And I can kind of shift and distort it. And to make it look a little less familiar, I can warp it. Kind of push and pull it. I know I have plenty of resolution to do this. Okay, and then last, let's see, I want to move that skull back a little bit. There we go. And then last I have this. These really, really sharp teeth, or really jagged, kind of rocky teeth. So what I'm going to do is rough cut around them, again with overlap. To become some of these foreground rocky forms. Duplicate, turn off the smart object, and play with placement. Let's see, and maybe transform them a little. So hold down Shift, squeeze them, distort them. Want them to be a little less symmetrical. Yeah, so maybe something like this. And I might tuck it behind the skull. All right. So that is rough placement. This is a good time to save. Command S or File Save. Because now I've kind of placed everything, and now I'm starting to get a sense of those layers of depth. Foreground, middle ground, background. Yeah, Ainsley. All right, so to refresh, I've got this smart object. Here I've got this skull. And let's say I want to use this as part of my far background, not just the foreground, right? To help with this mountain peak. So this is how we use the lasso tool. This is a smart object. So I take my lasso and I pretend like you're tearing out from a magazine page. I'm just going to grab the shapes I want from it. So let's see, I'm going to want this ridge. And this kind of sweep of teeth. And it doesn't need to be super precise. But I'm going to grab that cutout from the magazine page, right? And then to cut it out, I hit Command J. And then I turn off the smart object behind. And that Command J layer already has rasterized it, because it cut it out. And so this gives me the thing that I can manipulate. How can I manipulate it further? I want to use this in the far background as part of my mountain range. I can Command T, free transform it. I can flip it. I can rotate it. Let's see, what would be cool? Maybe something like this.